of Tremolo. I'm Ruth Roshan, and this is probably going to be my favorite lesson because this is the lesson that we talk about dynamics. We talk about louds and softs and how to be able to basically create moods between notes, within notes, using tremolo. So the first thing I'd like to tell you is that if you've been playing really loudly, like I just was, you may have developed a scratchy pick. Now a scratchy pick goes throughout the tremolo, so what you need to do is either sand it down, or if you happen to have another one, as I do in my pocket, replace the pick. I'll pick that up later. Okay, so I wanted to talk about volume and how to make things louder and softer. And actually with tremolo, there are a few different ways to make yourself sound louder and softer. And these can be combined, like they don't work mutually exclusively from each other, but you can sort of tap into the different ways and be able to basically express notes and change expression within notes, things like that. So the first thing I was going to tell you is probably the most obvious way to create the volume, and that is to hit the string harder. Because you want to maintain the same speed of tremolo, what you need to do is leave an extra microsecond of it resting on the next string. So basically what you're doing is you're actually hitting the string faster, thereby hitting it harder, but you're not going to speed up the tremolo because you have a microsecond resting in between. I'll give you an example. I'll try and go from soft to loud on B on the A string, and the only thing I'm going to do is hit the string harder this time. So. Okay, that was slightly slow for tremolo, but you get the idea. Perhaps we'll do that together actually. And if you happen to hit the other strings, that's probably a good sign. You might notice in my left hand, I gently dampen the other strings to make if I accidentally hit it and it makes the sound less obvious, and that's something that you can sort of get practice doing if you've got spare fingers around. We'll try it together. We'll start by going relatively quietly, and then we'll go loudly by hitting the string harder. We'll try and maintain the same rhythm, and then we'll go quiet again. Right, so. Super. Okay, so there are other ways to make sounds louder and softer, and the effect is a little bit different. So here is a second way of making a note louder and softer. And as you see the pick, this is my pick, and you can see there's a pointy end and then there's a wider end. Now if you play on the string closer to the pointier end, then it's going to be quieter than if you're playing at a thicker part of the pick. So essentially, and by the way, when you do move up to play or move down to play the thicker part of the pick, you will have to put more force to create the same number of strokes naturally. But this is a method again of going louder and softer by using different parts of the pick. So we'll try, let's try the E on the D string, excuse me, and we'll try just by moving the pick in and out from the string. Here we go. Let's do it together, or perhaps you can watch me and pause it and then give it a go yourself. Here we go, so. And then moving down and back and down and back. Super. Now, there is also a third way. I'm full of ways today, and the third way is basically, you may remember in lesson 1 we talked about the technique where I would hold the pick like this, and I would go down and play both strings, and then up, play one string. And so one way to obviously increase volume, and also it changes the tone quite a bit, is to sort of roll your hand more flat and then play 2 strings on the down and on the up. So this is a different thing, and you would rest on both the E string and the D string. So we'll try doing that, and so what I'm going to do is start off in my normal position, which is down and up, just playing 1 string, down playing 2 strings, and then I'm going to move it to the flat position where I try and play 2 strings on the up at the same time. And you'll see, of course, because you're playing 2 strings both ways, there's a fuller sound. So it's a different kind of increase in volume. So. All right, so that's basically the various different ways to increase volume, and once you know those ways, and you'll hopefully be able to think about them intuitively as you're playing pieces, and know that a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that way is going to express what you need to express when you're playing. And they're not mutually exclusive, as I've already said. You can combine, for example, the flat pick and the heavier hitting. You can combine going up and down and playing, sort of hitting it harder as well, etc. So essentially, that is the secret of dynamics with tremolo. I think that the best thing to do is try not to overthink it when you're actually playing. I feel like sometimes you learn things and you do the exercises, you internalize them, and then when you're actually playing, the best thing to do is just play as you feel, rather than trying to sort of think, now I should play this harder. Just as when you're playing notes, you don't say, now in order to do this, I have to put my finger down here. You're used to what a B is like. So there's this automatic thing that kind of happens. And if you're thinking about the music and the kind of feeling that you want to project, same thing. You'll start to internalize these techniques, and then they'll just start to come out of you naturally. I want you to listen to something, and I want to talk about it just after. So I'm going to just play a sequence of notes, and this is where you play single notes combined with tremolo. So here's what sometimes I hear. Okay. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but the point I'm trying to make is when you do use tremolo, you need to consider the mood of the piece that you're playing. So if you play something sort of really gentle and subtle, and then you suddenly go bang, 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 bang with your tremolo, then what's going to happen is you're sort of going to upset the mood. So one thing that you always need to consider in your mind is what mood you're going for when you do the tremolo. So to me, a more sympathetic tremolo would be like this. I'd now like to move on to the last subject that I really want to talk about, and that is how to use tremolo to create brilliance in a note, or to create sort of the hell for leather feel, just like Mizzaloo that we were playing at the beginning. One thing that you can do if you want to sort of emphasize a note is to basically play a really quick brr. So 3 notes, ba-da-ba. I'll give you an example, and then I'll go on to a more normal and measured tremolo. So if I go... So you hear the first 2, that's different from the other ones when I go. The second thing was what I was showing you with the Mizzaloo at the very beginning of the piece, and that is the hell for leather idea. Now, this works best if you have an accompaniment, because the accompaniment is setting the rhythm. And what you basically do is play the fastest tremolo that you can, and then just move the left hand onto the right note at the right time. It gives a completely different feel. You might say it gives a bit of a Dick Dale feel. So basically, what I was doing before is, you know. And as you hear, I'm basically, the focus is now, this is going at its speed, and then the left hand is moving at the right note at the right time. So that's another method that you can use if you have to go really, really fast. Finally, in lesson 1, I'll just remind you about lesson 1, that there are techniques when you want to be able to play in different parts of the instrument. And again, you can affect the feeling that you're giving. So even during a tremolo, you can move up and down if you wish. I tend not to do that, but it's certainly very haunting if you just play for a short time very close to the bridge. So that type of thing. Anyway, happy playing, and I'll see you for lesson 4.